Okay, so I'm ready to take this panel that goes in the living room, and this is the 100% one-way left Ripplefold drapery that is a sheer fabric. That's a very lightweight sheer, and that's why we went with 100% fullness. And I've already put in a 2-inch buckram in the header, and I wrapped it around 3 times. Instead of a double header, it's wrapped around 3 times because I have plenty of length. This fabric is railroaded. It's a 1/18-inch railroaded fabric. So I had enough at the top to wrap it 3 times, and I'll still have enough at the bottom for the hem. And I like to put the Ripplefold tape in the header when I'm working on a sheer first before starting with the hem, which if it was a lined drapery, I would start at the hem. The header, the buckram is just pinned into place for now, but I'm going to stretch this out on the table and get the Ripplefold tape stapled into place so I can sew it in before I actually table the drapery to length and put the side hems in. So that's my next step, and here's my pre-cut tape, Ripplefold tape with the snaps, and I marked it so I wouldn't forget which one I needed since I'm doing 3 different rooms at the same time. This is the living room, one-way left. I have the header in the top of this drapery right here at 2 inches, and I started the side hem just enough at the top so that I can place the tape where it goes. You see, I only ran my side hem to there. The rest of this I'll do when I table the rest of the drape. But to get the Ripplefold tape started, I wanted to just get this part turned and finished right here. And then I'm going to staple this into place and then pull this drape all the way to the end of the table and continue to place this tape on the header all the way across the length of this panel until I get to the end. And over here, this is the return end. So I'm not going to finish this until I get to the end with the tape, because this tape, even though I know how long it is, it might not land exactly where I think it's going to land, since as you work on fabric, you know, it could shrink or stretch more than what you anticipate. Okay, so I have the header laying on the table nice and straight and pulled tight and pinned down into place so that it's nice and taut while I'm laying down the Ripplefold tape. And I'm gonna just pin it into place, and then I'll staple it on so that it doesn't move around while I'm sewing it. I have found with Ripplefold that if I pin it, it's still gonna move, but if I staple it, it won't move. And then you just remove the staples after you're all done. And I want to pin it into place before I staple it, just so I can just get it nice and straight. And I'm kind of pulling also on the Ripplefold tape to get all of the ease out of it. And I'm trying to make sure that I have a consistent straight line where there's about a 1/16 of an inch of the fabric revealed at the top. And I'm doing this step before tabling the whole drapery. I have found that if you table the drapery, put the hem in, and then put in the header at the end, your length might change with a shear. Every shear is different, but some shears just change too much after you stitch this on, that it changes your length. Put in maybe 3 in between each snap, right in the middle. That way they're not in my way as I'm sewing, because I'll be sewing at the bottom and the top of the tape. So if you go right along the middle, they won't be in your way. And I just have a few more staples to put in over here. Then I will table the whole drapery after I stitch this tape on and remove the staples. And here I have more fabric at the end than necessary. I have about 9 inches of fabric after the tape ends. So what I'm going to do is mark where the tape ends and then move it aside. And then I'm going to fold right there and press it. And then I want a 3-inch side hem. So I'm going to mark that. And then I'm just going to cut enough of the header away to turn that part. I'm going to cut this off. And then I can turn this. I just want to be able to finish this header, and then I'll take care of the rest of this when I'm tabling. So now I can staple that down, and then my whole header is going to be finished. And a Ripplefold drapery does not need buckram, but in my opinion, you'll have a prettier header with a little buckram. It doesn't need to be a 4-inch. It could be a 5-inch if you want to have a nice big header, but and it doesn't even need to be 2-inch. It could just be a little strip, but 2-inch is nice in my opinion. I'm going to start sewing the Ripplefold tape onto the sheer drapery. Okay, so I have a special foot on here that is very skinny, so it fits right next to the snaps and doesn't bump into them as I'm sewing, so it's very handy. I'm going to start on the top first. Okay, I have the first stitch along the top edge all finished. Now I'm going to go back and start on the bottom. I'm removing the staples from the tape. Check the front, and it looks beautiful. Now that I have the Ripplefold tape stitched onto the top of the header, I'm going to table the panel to length from the top down. So I'm pinning the top to the finish line. It's 112.5. And then I'm going to put in the side hem over here and press in the bottom hem at the bottom. I'll have to move the whole panel over a couple of times to do the whole drapery. I have about 245 inches of fabric to table here. So once I get it pinned into place for this first width, then I'll run a row of pins down the side over here as a guide. So when I move this first width over to the other side, I'll have that row of pins to line up on that side of the table. Then I can make sure the fabric stays square as I move all this sheer fabric around. I'm just trying to make sure that I get an even amount of 3 inches turned over for the side hem before I press it into place. Okay, so I have the first width of this panel tabled. The header is pinned down at the finished length line at 112.5, and the side hem is turned and pressed and pinned into place, the double 1.5 inch side hem. And then I have the bottom hem started. It's folded over and pressed at the 0 line, and I'm not going to finish double turning it until I have the whole thing to this point, and then I can turn it and do it long ways on the table. But I did do this corner so that I could finish pinning this side hem into place. So that part is done. And now before I move the whole thing over, see I have this much more to table, I'm going to put a row of pins down this side so that I have a guide. So I'll put these all the way down this side, and then I'll use that line of pins. When I move it over there, I'll make sure that they line up on one of those lines over there. Okay, first width done. Now I'm going to move it over. And this is a railroaded fabric. It's 118 inches wide, so there's no seams in it, but it's still considered per width because we have to move it over each time on the table to get the length in. So here is that row of pins that I put into the other side, and I'm going to use them to line up on this side. I'm going to put them on this yellow line because it's really easy to see through the fabric. So there and there and there. I just check these pins and make sure they're on the line, and then I know that the whole panel will hang straight. Okay, I'm checking this line one more time to make sure the pins didn't move too far off the line. And then I'm going to press this section of hem into place. So this is considered width number 2. And I just did the math. This panel is equivalent to just over 4.5, so call it 5 widths of fabric. So this will be number 2, and then I have 3 more widths to table. Okay, that's width number 2 done. I'm going to move it over and continue until I get to the other end.